I was the only one who took care of Grandpa, but when he died, they all showed up for the inheritance. That sentence looped in my head like a bad song the day we lowered his casket into the ground. Cold February wind slicing across my face, mud clinging to my shoes, and the rest of them standing there in their designer coats and plastic grief. They looked more annoyed than heartbroken, like the funeral was an inconvenience, not a goodbye. I'm Nate, 34, small-town Ohio, and for the last 5 years, I was the only person in my family who gave a damn about Grandpa Walter. It wasn't always like that. Growing up, Grandpa was the center of everything. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every birthday, it was always at his house. Big old place with creaky wood floors and a chimney that never worked right. He told the same war stories every year, gave everyone the same brandy orange hard candies, and somehow still made every grandkid feel like the favorite. But when Grandma died, everything started to fall apart. My mom, my uncles, my cousins, they slowly stopped coming around. Excuses piled up. Too busy, too far, too tired. And when his memory started slipping, they vanished completely. He wasn't always easy. I'll admit that. There were days he didn't recognize me. He'd call me Eli, his brother who died in the 70s. Sometimes he'd yell at the walls like someone was listening. Sometimes he'd forget to eat, forget to lock the door. I'd find him sitting in the backyard in the snow with no shoes on. But I stayed. I moved into the old house after my lease ended. Gave up my job in Cleveland, started freelancing. I ran errands, paid bills, took him to every appointment, sat with him through endless VA visits, changed adult diapers, cleaned up after accidents, calmed him down during the night terrors. It wasn't noble. It was messy. It was real. And I never asked for help, mostly because I knew it wouldn't come. The last time my cousin Tyler visited was 3 Christmases ago. He stayed 20 minutes. Left because it smelled like a hospital. My Uncle Dave? He'd pop in once a year, unannounced, just to take pictures with Grandpa for Facebook. Caption it with something like, "Family is everything." Then disappear again. So when Grandpa passed, peacefully, thank God, I thought it'd just be me at the funeral. Maybe the priest. Maybe the neighbors. But no, they all showed up. Cousin Jenna in her high heels and fake tears. Uncle Dave, trying to look solemn in a designer coat, he probably returned the next day. Mom, who hadn't called him in over a year, acting like she was next of kin. And when the lawyer showed up at the wake with a sealed envelope and said, "There's a will," you'd have thought someone announced a lottery drawing. Suddenly, they were all interested again. Sympathetic, kind, nostalgic. Tyler clapped me on the back, said, "Must have been tough taking care of him all this time, huh? You're a good guy." I stared at him so hard he finally backed off. Jenna offered to help clean up after the wake, which meant she stood around scrolling through Instagram while I bagged up half-eaten sandwiches and picked used tissues off the floor. But I knew what they were really there for. They wanted the house, Grandpa's land, the money. They thought he'd left it all for them, split evenly, just like it said in the old draft of the will from years ago. The one they all conveniently forgot they'd signed copies of. But what none of them knew was that Grandpa had made a new one. A quiet afternoon 2 months before he died, I found him sitting in the kitchen, hands shaking, holding a legal pad. "Write this down, Nate," he said, "before I forget again." That's when he dictated it, in slow, deliberate sentences, what he called his final say. We had it notarized the next day. Just me, him, and the notary public from the UPS store. He told me not to mention it, not even to Mom. Let him show their faces first, he said. Then give them the truth. Now that envelope, the one from the lawyer, was sitting in the center of the dining room table like a bomb waiting to go off. I watched them hover, sniffing around it like vultures pretending to mourn. And in that moment, I realized something. None of them were ready for what was inside. Because Grandpa didn't leave them the house. He didn't leave them the land. He didn't even leave them a dime. He left them something else entirely. And when they found out, it was going to tear this family to pieces. The lawyer was late. Typical. Everyone had already taken their spots around Grandpa's ancient oak dining table, like it was some medieval throne room. Uncle Dave sat at the head, of course, claiming the seat like he'd inherited it already. Jenna and Tyler flanked him, scrolling through their phones, whispering about property values in the area. My mother sipped lukewarm coffee, pretending not to glance at the envelope every few seconds. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching them like I was in the wrong house. The weird thing? No one asked me anything. Not how I was holding up. Not how Grandpa's last days went. Not even if I had any photos they could post in tribute. They just acted like I was the caretaker. Like my job ended the second Grandpa stopped breathing. The doorbell rang. I didn't move. Let Uncle Dave answer it. Let him feel in charge for another 5 minutes. He strutted to the door and opened it like a king greeting his tax collector. The lawyer, Mr. Brent, walked in, short, sweating, mid-60s, carrying a leather briefcase like it weighed 100 pounds. He looked around the room like he expected a war. He wasn't wrong. "Thank you all for being here," he said, trying to sound calm. "This won't take long. Walter revised his will 2 months ago, and I've been instructed to read the contents aloud, as per his final wishes." My mother blinked. Jenna sat up straighter. Uncle Dave chuckled. "Glad to hear Dad kept things updated. Always a sharp one, even toward the end." I saw Mr. Brent's eyes flick to me, just for a second. He opened the envelope. The paper made a crisp sound, like something final. I felt my chest tighten. I knew what was in there, but hearing it out loud was going to be a whole different storm. Mr. Brent cleared his throat. "To my family. I know some of you will only be hearing this now because you think there's something to gain. That's fine. I've made peace with it. But understand this. The man I was in my final years, I owed everything to one person." A pause. Jenna was already frowning. "To my grandson, Nathan, you stayed. You showed up. You cleaned up after me when I was too proud to ask. You treated me like a person when I forgot I was one. You gave me dignity in the end." Tyler shifted uncomfortably. My mother's face froze. Mr. Brent continued. "Because of this, I leave my house, all 5 acres of land, my savings account, and all remaining assets solely to Nathan Elijah Cooper." It was silent, dead silent, like the air had been vacuumed out of the room. For a second, I thought no one even breathed. Then chaos. "What the hell?" Jenna's voice cracked, shooting out of her seat like a firework. "That's not legal. He was sick. He didn't know what he was doing." Uncle Dave slammed a hand on the table. "This has to be a mistake. There was a family agreement. We had a deal." Mr. Brent raised a hand. "The will was legally signed and notarized. Walter was of sound mind. There are audio recordings, video documentation, and 2 witness statements if needed." Tyler looked like he'd been slapped. "You mean this whole time, we were just extras in your little inheritance game?" I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. The truth was loud enough. My mother, she didn't yell, didn't argue, just sat there, staring at her empty coffee cup like it had betrayed her. "He left you everything," she said quietly. "Even the land? Even the coin collection?" I nodded. "Why?" I finally spoke. Maybe because I was the only one who ever asked him how he was doing. They didn't hear that, though? Not really. Because none of them wanted truth. They wanted shares. Percentages. Cuts. Mr. Brent closed the folder. "There's a clause that if anyone contests the will, their claim is automatically void." Walter was very clear. Jenna cursed under her breath. Dave stood like he might flip the table. But I didn't care. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't invisible. And Grandpa's voice, even from the grave, was finally louder than their entitlement. They left in waves. First it was Jenna, still muttering under her breath, grabbing her coat like it had personally offended her. Then Tyler, trailing behind her like a kicked puppy, mumbling something about needing a drink. Uncle Dave stuck around just long enough to glare at me, then told Mr. Brent, "This isn't over." Mom was the last to leave. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there in the kitchen, staring at the fridge like she was seeing it for the first time. There was still a photo of me and Grandpa from last summer magnet to the door. We were both sweaty from cutting wood, smiling, holding lemonade like it was gold. "He really gave you everything," she finally said, voice flat. "Yeah." Her eyes didn't leave the photo. "You know how that looks, right? Like you manipulated him." I didn't react. "I know how it looks," I said. "And I also know what actually happened." She turned to me, arms crossed. "Your grandfather had dementia. Early stage. And he was lucid when we drafted it." Mr. Brent confirmed it. "So did the doctor." She opened her mouth like she had a comeback, but nothing came out. Just a long, tired breath. "Mom, he waited for you. For years. You never came." "That's not fair." Neither was dumping him on me and disappearing. "I didn't ask you to do that." "No, you just let me." We stood in that stale silence for a beat too long. "I loved him," she whispered. I nodded. "Then you should have shown up." She didn't argue, just grabbed her purse and left without another word. After the door closed, the house felt bigger somehow, empty in a way that wasn't just physical. I stood there for a while, then picked up the envelope again. The will was still there, signed in Grandpa's shaky handwriting. I traced the edge with my thumb. He really did it. I didn't sleep that night. Just wandered the house, touching everything like it might vanish. His old recliner, the dusty piano no one played, the oil painting of Grandma above the mantel. Every room whispered him. Around 3 a.m., I found myself in the attic. Boxes, dozens of them. Stuff he hadn't touched in years. I pulled one down, then another. Photos, letters, journals. And at the bottom of one box, a locked wooden chest with my name carved into it. I froze. The key was taped to the bottom. Inside, everything changed. Inside the chest was a stack of letters, tied with twine, yellowed at the edges. On top, in Grandpa's scrawled handwriting, was a note, "For Nate, when I'm gone." My hands shook as I untied the twine. I don't know what I expected, maybe more instructions, maybe something about money. But the first letter wasn't about logistics. It was about him. It started, "You stayed. So now you get the truth." That line hit me like a slap. What followed unraveled everything I thought I knew about my family. He talked about the war, not just the medals and speeches, but the nightmares. The things he did. The things he saw. How he came back broken, but no one wanted to hear it. How he drowned it all in bourbon and silence for years. "I failed your mother," he wrote. "She needed a father, and I gave her a ghost. That's why she ran. And that's why she pretends now. Pretends it was all normal. It wasn't." I paused, staring at the words. Grandpa was never the type to admit fault. Never. But here he was, stripped bare on paper. Another letter detailed his finances. How he saved every penny after Grandma died. Quietly sold collectibles online, canceled subscriptions, clipped coupons, just so there'd be something left for me. "You think I didn't know they'd come crawling when I died?" he wrote. "They've always been good at showing up for the photo. You were the only one who showed up for the work." There were photos too. Some I'd never seen. One of him and Grandma on their wedding day. One of my mom, age 5, sitting in his lap while he read a book. And one of me, maybe 10 years old, asleep on his shoulder after a baseball game. He captioned that one. He never asked for anything. That one broke me. I don't know how long I sat there in the attic. Long enough for the sun to rise and bleed through the dusty window. I opened every letter. Read every confession. Every apology. Every piece of truth he'd never said aloud. And at the very bottom of the chest, wrapped in a flannel handkerchief, was his wedding ring. A sticky note attached to it read, "Use it when you know what love really means." That day, I didn't just inherit a house. I inherited his ghosts, his guilt, his grace. I came down from the attic with a full heart and trembling hands. I thought I'd finally found peace. But peace never lasts long in my family. 3 days later, I got the letter. The envelope was thick, off-white, and formal. Return address, Manning, Griffin & Cole, LLP. Law firm. My heart dropped. I already knew what it was before I tore it open. Inside, a letterhead, legal jargon, and the word contest printed 3 times in bold. Uncle Dave was suing me. Well, technically, he was contesting the will, claiming undue influence, mental incompetence, and a whole bunch of other phrases I'd only heard in TV dramas. He was trying to claw back what Grandpa had given me, what he had earned. The kicker? He wasn't doing it alone. Jenna, Tyler, and Mom, they'd all signed on. Even Mom. I had to read her name twice. My own mother. After everything. After Grandpa's letters, after the chest, after the truth, she still chose the money. I sat on the porch with that letter in my lap, staring out at the land Grandpa mowed until the day his knees gave out. I thought about the summers we grilled hot dogs by the oak tree. I thought about the night he told me, through tears, that he was afraid of forgetting his own name. Now his son was dragging his name through court. I called Mr. Brent. He answered on the first ring. "Already heard," he said. "We're prepared. I've got copies of the tapes, the doctor's notes, the witnesses, everything. You're on solid ground." "Still," I said, "they're coming after me like I stole something." He sighed. "Because to them, you did. You stole the fantasy, the picture they had of themselves getting a payout without putting in the time." I wanted to scream, but instead, I just stared at the gravel driveway and whispered, "It was never about the money. Doesn't matter. It is now." The lawsuit turned into a circus. They plastered their side of the story all over Facebook. How I manipulated a sick old man. How I twisted Grandpa's final days into some twisted guilt trip. Jenna even did a video. Real tears and everything. Tyler posted a throwback photo of him and Grandpa, captioned, "Some things deserve to be shared, not stolen." Mom stayed quiet. She always was good at letting others do the dirty work. Neighbors started looking at me differently. The mailman wouldn't make eye contact. The lady at the diner, the one who used to give me free refills, suddenly acted like I was invisible. That's what they don't tell you about legal drama. It stains you, even when you're right. The worst part? The house didn't feel like mine anymore. Every creak in the floorboards sounded like Grandpa trying to warn me. Every drawer I opened held a memory, and now every memory was being weaponized in depositions. I'd walk through the living room and see Jenna's lawyer dragging Grandpa's journals into evidence, as if grief could be measured in bullet points. Then one night, I got a text from someone I hadn't heard from in a decade. "Hey, it's Eli, Grandpa's estranged brother. The one who disappeared after a fight in '92. The one no one talked about. I heard what's happening. You should know. Walter made me promise something before he died." I stared at the screen for a long time. Eli. I hadn't heard that name since I was a kid. Grandpa's brother, the ghost in every family photo. The name whispered in arguments and silences. Supposedly ran off after a fight over land, or money, or both. No one knew for sure. Grandpa never talked about him. And now, out of nowhere, Walter made me promise something before he died. I texted back, "What kind of promise?" He replied almost instantly, "Not over text. You free tomorrow?" Next day, 11 a.m., I was sitting in the corner booth of Miller's Diner, the same place Grandpa used to take me every Saturday. Pancakes, scrambled eggs, and a story. Always a story. Eli showed up 10 minutes late. He looked like time had dragged him behind a truck. Thick beard, sun-damaged skin, eyes like ice chips. But when he smiled, I saw it. The same crooked grin Grandpa used to wear. "Damn, you're the spitting image of your dad," he said. "Grandson." He blinked. "Jesus, thought you were Kevin's kid." "Kevin's my uncle." He nodded slowly. Right. Sorry. Been a while since I've cared about who's who." He slid into the booth and ordered black coffee, no cream. So I said, "The promise." He sipped, grimaced. "Your grandpa called me 2 months before he passed. Out of the blue. Said he needed to tie up a loose end. Asked me to drive in. Swore me to silence until now, I guess." My heart started racing. "He gave me a folder," Eli said. "Said if the family went after you, and he figured they would, I was to hand it over to you. Only you." He reached into his coat and pulled out a thick, sealed envelope. Across the front, "For Nate. Only if they turn on you." My throat went dry. Inside the envelope was a USB drive, a handwritten letter, and, to my shock, a notarized document. Not a will. A transfer agreement. It was signed months before the official will. It listed all Grandpa's assets, the same ones from the estate. But this document, it wasn't a bequest. It was a sale. $1. He had transferred everything to me. House, land, account, months before he even updated the will. I read the letter. Grandpa's voice poured off the page. "In case they try to paint this as manipulation, here's proof I made the choice with full mind. They'll say you took from them. This says otherwise. I gave it to you, while I still could." My hands were trembling. Eli said nothing. Just watched me like he was waiting for me to cry, or explode, or laugh. I looked up. "Why you? Why'd he trust you with this?" His smile faded. "Because I was the first one who betrayed him, and the only one who ever apologized." We sat in silence. Then I asked the one question that had been burning since I got the lawsuit. "Why does it always come down to money in this family?" Eli shook his head slowly. "Because it's the only language they speak. But not you. That's why he gave it all to you." I closed the envelope, slid it into my bag. The war wasn't over. But now, I had ammunition. I didn't sleep the night after meeting Eli. I sat at the kitchen table with the envelope in front of me, unopened again, even though I knew every word by heart now. The transfer agreement. The letter. The USB. Proof. It was strange. You'd think having the upper hand would make you feel strong. Safe. But all I felt was this gnawing grief, like I'd inherited Grandpa's battles, not just his assets. I took the USB to the local print shop first thing in the morning. Asked them to scan and print everything on thick paper. 5 copies. The woman behind the counter gave me a polite smile, not knowing she was printing the first shots of a family war. I mailed one to Mr. Brent, one to the courthouse, one to Uncle Dave's lawyer. The other 2 I kept. The backlash came quick. 3 days later, Jenna called. "You really think this changes anything?" She snapped before I could say hello. "You think this little stunt makes you the hero?" "I think it makes me the legal owner," I said. "You stole him," she hissed. "You isolated him, you brainwashed him." I hung up. The next day, Tyler showed up at the house, unannounced, wearing a suit like it was armor. "I just want to talk," he said, hands in the air. "You're trespassing. Come on, man. Don't do this. This isn't you." He used to say the same thing when we were kids, after he pushed me down and I finally hit back. I opened the screen door. "Then maybe you never knew me." He left, but it didn't end there. That week, someone egged the porch. Next day, I found tire tracks through Grandpa's garden. Deep, deliberate ruts. Then came the voicemail from my mother. "You've ripped this family apart," she said, her voice trembling. "You think this would make him proud? You think this is what Walter wanted, turning his death into a circus? You're disgusting." I didn't call back. I couldn't, because I was too busy listening to the files on the USB. Recordings. Dozens of them. Grandpa speaking, sometimes clearly, sometimes with that old man ramble. But always intentional. Always naming me. "I want Nate to have it." He stayed. He saw me when I was a ghost. He's the only one who calls me Walter, not the old man. He didn't wait for me to die to show up. Each one landed like a punch to the gut. Not because I doubted him, but because it hurt to hear how much he saw. I forwarded a few clips to Mr. Brent. He called me within the hour. "Nate," he said, "I think we're done here. To be continued in part 8. 8. Mr. Brent wasn't exaggerating. By the end of the week, the lawsuit was dropped. No statement. No apology. Just silence. It didn't feel like a victory. It felt like the quiet after a storm when you walk outside and realize half your world's been torn up, even if you're still standing. They didn't call. They didn't text. Not even Mom. Which told me one thing. They lost, but they weren't done resenting me. I didn't care. Not the way I thought I would. Because as much as I wanted peace, I wasn't going to apologize for being the only one who stayed. A week after it all ended, I found myself back in the attic. The chest was still there. But this time, I wasn't looking for more letters. I was putting something back. I placed Grandpa's wedding ring, the one he left for when I understood love, into the chest. Next to it, I left a note. "Not yet, but I'm getting closer." That afternoon, I started repairs on the fence line. Grandpa used to fix it every spring, said the land needed to know someone still cared about the boundary. Halfway through, a voice called from the road. "Need a hand." It was Eli. He held up a toolbox and a lopsided grin. We worked side by side until sunset. Didn't talk much. Didn't need to. He knew what it felt like to be cast out, then brought back by truth, not forgiveness. When we finished, he clapped my shoulder. "He'd be proud, you know." I nodded. "I hope so." Eli paused. "So what are you going to do with all this?" I looked out over the land. The fading sky, the house Grandpa built with his hands, the quiet that finally felt like mine. "I'm going to live here. Fix the place up. Maybe make it a home again. For just you. Not forever. But for now, yeah." He nodded like that made sense. "Well, when you're ready to plant tomatoes, call me. I've got seeds." After he left, I stood in the middle of the yard. It was the first time in months I didn't feel like I was guarding something. The house, the will, my own heart. I was just here. A grandson. A man learning what love really means. And this time, no one could take it away. Spring came late that year. The land thawed slow, like it wasn't sure it trusted warmth again. Kinda like me. I started a routine. Wake up with the sun. Feed the neighbor's chickens. Part-time gig. Enough for gas and groceries. Then I'd walk the perimeter of the property, boots crunching on thawed soil, checking fence posts, clearing brush, listening to the land breathe. Sometimes I'd sit under the oak tree where Grandpa and I used to grill. Just sit and think. About him. About them. About what comes next. The thing about grief is, it never really leaves. It just changes clothes. Sometimes it shows up as anger. Sometimes it's quiet. And sometimes, like the day I found Grandma's recipe book behind the fireplace, it smells like cinnamon and makes you cry like a kid again. I called Eli once a week. We talked about soil acidity, engine trouble, and old memories. He never asked about the others. Neither did I. But they didn't stay gone. One morning, there was a knock at the door. I opened it expecting a delivery, maybe Eli. It was my mother. She looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I'd just gotten taller from holding all this weight. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. She didn't say much at first. Just wandered the living room like it was a museum of things she left behind. Her hand brushed the mantel. The picture of Grandpa and me was still there. "I heard you didn't sell," she said softly. "No plans to." I figured. This place always meant more to you. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She turned to face me, eyes heavy. I was wrong. About a lot. About you. About him. About what this all meant. I waited. "I didn't come for money," she added. "I just wanted to see it. One last time." That hit me harder than I expected. One last time. "I'm moving. Colorado. Retirement thing." She smiled sad. Figured I'd start over somewhere quieter. We stood there in the echo of everything we never said. Finally, I spoke. "Do you want coffee?" She nodded. I poured 2 cups. Sat across from her at Grandpa's old table. We didn't rehash the lawsuit, or the will, or the years of silence. We talked about Grandma's pies. About how Grandpa snored like a freight train. About how the garden used to bloom like it was trying to outshine the sky. She stayed 2 hours, left with teary eyes and a half smile. Before she walked out, she touched my shoulder. "You did right by him." After she drove off, I walked out to the field. The one Grandpa wanted to plant but never got to. I knelt, dug my hands into the cold soil. Time to plant something. Time to begin again. The garden came in slow, stubborn like Grandpa used to be. I planted tomatoes, bell peppers, squash, and sunflowers. Eli brought over seedlings in egg cartons, his boots muddy, his grin wide. Said the sunflowers were his favorite. They don't ask for much, just face the light and keep growing. Some days I still heard the ghosts. Grandpa coughing in the den, Grandma laughing in the kitchen, my younger self sprinting across the lawn, barefoot and summer wild. They weren't haunting me anymore, just lingering, watching. Word got out about the lawsuit being dropped. A few neighbors stopped avoiding me. Old Mrs. Klein waved from her porch again. The diner waitress gave me a free refill without speaking, but she smiled this time. Small wins. One morning, I found an envelope in the mailbox. No return address. Inside, a photo. Me and Grandpa on the porch, 2 summers ago. I didn't even know it had been taken. He's smiling. I'm holding coffee. The light's hitting us just right, like we knew something the world didn't. On the back, in Jenna's handwriting, "Maybe you were right." No name. No explanation. Just that. I didn't frame it. I didn't text her. I just placed it inside the chest upstairs, beside the ring, beside the letter I wrote to myself. Not yet, but I'm getting closer. A few weeks later, I opened the barn, cleaned it out, repaired the beams, started drafting plans for a workshop, maybe woodworking, maybe just a place where people could come and remember what it felt like to make something with their hands. I didn't know yet, but it felt good to imagine again. That night, I stood on the porch. The stars were out. Eli sat beside me, sipping lemonade. "Your grandpa would have liked this," he said. "He'd complain about the weeds." I replied. We laughed. Then he got quiet. "Think you'll ever leave?" I shook my head. "This place, it's not just land. It's proof that love doesn't always look like flowers or hugs or big speeches. Sometimes it looks like staying, like showing up, like planting tomatoes in a field no one believed in." He raised his glass. "To staying." I clinked his cup. "To staying." The wind blew gentle through the trees. And for the first time since the funeral, I felt completely, undeniably home. The end.